So, casual One Piece fans will understand the main conflict of the series is between two factions. The world government shrouding the planet in void versus the D-Clan who will bring the dawn. Those holding dominion versus those wanting freedom. But what many don't notice is that there is a secret third faction lurking behind them. A splinter of the D-Clan containing the most powerful characters of all time. Characters who wield such power in order to achieve one goal: destroy the world. Let's talk about the legacy of Rox D. Xebec.
He even came with his chains!
To begin, where does this group come from? Well, we don't know. Bye-bye 60% of my audience, but seriously, looking into the leading theory, it's not that hard to tell what the D-Clan originally was, by proxy, the dream to destroy the world. From all the evidence shown so far, we can surmise the D-Clan was a group of pirates just like the Straw Hats, with their captain being the first ever pirate, Joy Boy. We can see it through the D initial not being limited to one race/family, nor is it only the people of the ancient kingdom, as Nefertari Lily was also a D member despite her being one of the families to oppose said kingdom. Speaking of Lily, the theory has a striking resemblance to the ending of Alabasta, but instead of an X representing our hero's friendship, it is a family initial standing throughout the generations. However, despite this, the D has lost all of its meaning. Whether it was supposed to be dawn, dreams, destiny, no one knows. What has remained though is the will, which has been inherited in two schools of thought. First, Joy Boy's will, represented by the Straw Hat, carried by this vague idea of freedom. The second, more sinister, is the will of destruction, I guess. Don't really have a figure to attach to this, Davy Jones ? But very simple. It is represented and carried by the goal to destroy the entire world. That's it. Most likely in Joy Boy's crew, there was some sort of dissent, a person who didn't agree with his ideals, was selfish, or both. This disagreement could have stemmed from the debate on whether Nico was a destroyer or liberator. There's another strong parallel here to Odin's flashback. Odin's story is almost beat for beat the same as Joy Boy's, and he had a traitor within his midst. We don't know who this Kanjuro figure was for Joy Boy, again, Davy Jones ? Yet it is a perfect explanation for someone like Blackbeard. Completely different from any D-Clan member we've seen, despite sharing the same initial. In the same way the Straw Hat is passed down, fate causes the will of destruction to continue. As you can imagine, everyone who pursues this goal must be very powerful/deceitful, which is a common trend in all these characters. Starting on the eldest member of the faction we know of, being Rox. Rox D. Xebec was introduced as one of the most sinister figures in this series. After centuries of inheritance, all of the hatred and will manifested into a vile creature. The audience is informed by Sengoku that Rox is a man who broke many of the world's taboos, kidnapping world leaders, destroying the gates of justice, declaring war on the government directly to Imu's face, just to name a few. A more minor example though is encountering a young Prince Loki. Despite being a lonely child just wanting to join his crew, Xebec beat and stabbed him for being too persistent. Clashing with one of the strongest giants we've seen right after killing an admiral only adds to this image, showing how much of a monster he was even before he started a crew. A crew full of a bunch of hotshots who didn't like working under anyone, leading to infighting. Though this did whittle down their numbers to a strong few, including people such as Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, and Shiki, all of which went on to become huge names. It's no wonder they originated from the most powerful group at the time, possibly of all time. Now yes, that is debatable because despite the group being absolutely stacked, none of them except the captain were in their primes. There are multiple statements/showings to support that. However, it should still speak to Xebec's ability how he was able to hold a mess like this together. This mess, known as the Rox Pirates, would go on to terrorize the world government specifically, with no one being able to stop them. That is, until someone stopped them, or many people. 38 years ago on the island of God Valley, the crew came to an end by the hands of Gold D. Roger and Monkey D. Garp. Rox was there to kill the large amount of celestial dragons present, yet due to him being the common enemy of marines plus pirates, he was probably the #1 target. The imagery in Sengoku's explanation shows Roger and Garp in a 2v4, but that probably didn't happen. There were multiple other strong players on the island, including the Gods Knights, Rayleigh, Gabon, Saturn for some reason, Bogard, then what most viewers miss is many infamous pirate crews showed up, not just Rox and Roger. Combine everything with the Rox crew having terrible teamwork, which is shown in how Big Mom splits off to find devil fruits. All of this to say, the crew was definitely not beaten in a 2-on-4. Rox himself probably wasn't killed in a 2-on-1. Though if he was, it still speaks to his combat prowess. The greatest figures at the time needed to team up to win. Now, even with that, Rox's death, plus the world government covering up his entire history, it's not over. As we know, people only die when they're forgotten. Rox's visage still lives on today. Whitebeard became the strongest man in the world, though he never wanted to manage a crew full of conquerors, unlike Rox. 50-year-old Kaido still considers his former captain to be one of the greatest fighters he's ever met. This is a guy whose whole life is battle, by the way. Sengoku thought Xebec to be Roger's greatest foe, an idea backed by Road to Laugh-Tale, which states it verbatim. Combine said statement with Whitebeard scaling above Roger, and for a long time, Rox was the most powerful character in the series, with feats. Yet all of this would pale in comparison to the influence on his two successors. Let's begin with his son, Blackbeard. As said earlier, just like how the Straw Hat is passed down, so is Xebec's legacy. Now, we don't know how Blackbeard figured out about his father, as he was only a year old during the God Valley incident. It could have been through his mother, or even just the shared experience of living in this terrible world. Because as shown, Blackbeard's childhood wasn't good to him. Whether it be fate or direct influence, Rox's will would change the world through Blackbeard. Marshall D. Teach already had a plan to destroy everything from a young age. Cunning, patience, and a little luck allowed him to gain two of the greatest devil fruits. One being able to pull everything into the darkness, with the other having the potential to shatter the planet, literally. Blackbeard also shifted the era into that of a throne war, bringing the world closer to its destruction. Now, many might be quick to point out the contradiction between Rox's goal and that of his son's. We understand from Sengoku he was a terrorist who wanted to become king of the world, yet it doesn't necessarily break any logic here. Becoming king of the world could be the easiest way to destroy it, like how Pirate King is the easiest path to freedom. It doesn't really matter. Now, when discussing Blackbeard's strength, I already have an entire video on it. TLDR, many people think of Teach being this homogeneous figure only growing from devil fruits, but that's not true. He is an ingenious person, yet gets overconfident very easily. The main agenda right now is the idea that Blackbeard still struggles with characters like Law. This is one of the most lied on fights ever. In reality, Law caught him off guard while mid-air, which is shown when he blocks the same exact attack right after, and there's no evidence of Blackbeard getting hit any other time. While I do think Teach still has growing to do, his feats against Law show he's already at the pinnacle of strength. As he shrugged off an attack Big Mom begged Law not to use. Teach also wasn't scared in the presence of a rogue admiral until his weaker crewmates were threatened. He even has seasoned veterans such as Rayleigh admitting inferiority. This man is not only extremely powerful, but the linchpin of the entire era we are witnessing. However, Rox's influence doesn't stop there, because throughout the entire series there has been a growing legend in the background, a character whose story could be just as important as Luffy's. Let's circle back to Prince Loki. This is the reason why I question Blackbeard's knowledge of Rox, because in an act of reverse psychology, Loki's beating only made him fall in line even more. The giant prince has been forsaken since birth, with his mom throwing him out the fucking balcony. Loki is then blamed for every catastrophe that occurred on Elbaf, abused, and framed for his father's murder. So it's no wonder why getting beaten to death by his idol is only more motivation. Just like the Straw Hat, Rox's will was ingrained into Loki. So when the time came for him to eat the legendary Sun God fruit, he went for the evil interpretation of Nika. Now, Prince Loki is the one who will bring the destruction of this world. Of course, it's in contrast to Luffy, and the story of Rox's will mirrors Roger's perfectly. The Straw Hat is a symbol only passed when the time is right. Rox's hatred is indiscriminate, like the destruction it causes. Of course, their conflict always meets. After the initial two, it was Shanks and Blackbeard, and finally, Luffy and Loki. Just as his predecessors, the prince is easily one of the most powerful people we've ever witnessed. Pretty much every chapter of this arc has hyped him in some way. A force greater than all the warriors of Elbaf. Legendary fighter Skopper Gaban needed to test a Yonko to make sure he was prepared to free Loki, which also soft confirms he's no match for the prince. All three types of Haki, Conquers and Observation on par with Luffy, a weapon which can spawn lightning, durability level with Kaido, ancient giant genetics making him larger, as well as his own legendary devil fruit. Yet despite all said, it's most likely whatever we see Loki perform in this arc, he will be nerfed. As explained by Gerd, the injuries from the God's Knight's torture will take months to heal. Even still, he's fully prepared to fight all of Imu's forces in the Sun Realm, with a smile on his face is crazy. So where does this Will of Destruction go from here? Well, some may take issue with me calling Loki Luffy's parallel instead of Blackbeard, but I think that's valid. Loki seems like a more sympathetic character who may switch sides in the future, leaving way for the Luffy-Blackbeard conflict. Though with all the research I've done for this video, I find myself asking when this conflict will take place. The great final villain debate of One Piece is not as simple as I thought. Now I understand why people are so invested in it because both sides are extremely valid. It ultimately comes down to what you think is more important. Luffy paves the path to freedom, Imu attempts to attain complete order, while Blackbeard sinks everything into chaos. Which of the latter two should be defeated first? Should they be defeated at all? The first world, where this all originated, seems similar to the present. The second world, Joy Boy's era, was one of freedom, though it wasn't perfect because it didn't last forever. So after thousands of years of going back and forth, maybe, just maybe, real change is in order. But this is a shonen story, so the protagonist's side is always right, despite all the logical fallacies. Bye.
Rox's swordsmanship was oh no.